give this super enhance a chance to work. So it brought the image from 8 megabytes to 34. All right, let's do some basic adjustments on it. Bring the contrast up a little bit. Brush the shadows just a touch. It's a JPEG, so we're just going to have to work with what we got. So as you see, it's not very high resolution, but I think I can still pull something off with this one. Let's just see. See a few imperfections that I might want to work out. But usually when I'm working with an image this low resolution, I don't do a lot of retouching on some of the details if I can avoid. I see a few that I could touch up. Some of these little pimples. I would take this area out right here. Just grab the lasso tool and just look for some skin that matches pretty well. You still may have to go in and do a little bit of further enhancements just to make it look more natural. But remember, we're working with a really low resolution JPEG to start with, so. But yet I still see things we could take out, like, oops, bikini indentation. Take that right out. A lot of times you can get a lot of this stuff with you get to your skin softening. But since we're already here, go ahead and grab them. I think most of it, we'll just go with what we see. Which doesn't support hashtags. Yeah, that's a pain. It's like when I go live on like Instagram or YouTube or something like that, it's a lot easier to kind of get the word out because, you know, I can use a lot of hashtags. But I still go ahead and do the you know, Twitter thing whenever I go live. So that helps a little bit, I think, but I'm very new to Twitch, so I don't know yet, you know, how much of an effect this is going to have on the channel itself and the content that I create. So I'm still learning a lot about the platform. Like I said, you know, most of my other platforms that I go live on, it's a lot easier to, you know, get my followers on the page that something's about to happen. It's like with YouTube, you know, you can just schedule, and I think you can schedule on here as well if you have followers, you know, but I've literally been doing this for 2 days, so. So I look for like all the little imperfections that I can take out. And, like I said, most of these things, most people would never see. Like, this bracelet, one of the first things I'd want to do is try and close this bracelet up, but I'll worry about that when I get to the final touch-ups and stuff like that. So right now I'm just looking for any little imperfections, even in this low resolution image, that I can take out or before I get to frequency separation. Now, being that this is such a low resolution image, you have to be really careful when you're doing frequency separation to make sure that you're not, your radius isn't too high, because again, this is a low resolution image. So let's zoom all the way out, and I'm gonna run the basic frequency separation. So if we look here, and we zoom in on our face, if we go all the way out, we can see that, there's not a lot of blurriness to our skin. But as we start to bring up that radius, and like I said, with a low resolution image like this, you may want to go higher than normal. So let's just go with 10. Well, go with 10. And all I'm trying to do here is to harmonize some of these skin tones, from like tanning, stuff like that. And we'll start with the face. I'm gonna turn off the high layer so we just get the colors. And then you want to go down and create a black and white layer. And then you want to crush the reds so you can really see, the transitions between highlights, shadows, midtones, things like that. You can really see them a lot clearer. So let's maybe a little bit more. We'll go with that. So the next thing you want to do, if you're following along, is to, one, we're going to move this out of our frequency separation stack and put it above. We'll just turn it on and off. And then go down here to our lower color layer. We're going to grab our mixer brush. And I'm going to check to see which brush I've selected here. I'm not using a pen right now, so I'm going to go ahead and just grab this soft round brush. I'm going to start mixing the skin colors. Get a little harmony going here. And you just take your time. Usually there's no rush. And just look for the inconsistency in the colors and try to blend them together. If you're working with a much higher resolution image, this is a much better process, because you're able to really get in and you're not worried so much about, artifacts and things like that. But like I said, with some of these low resolution images, you get what you start with. And I mean, I was able to raise the resolution of the image somewhat, using this new plugin in Photoshop. But even that doesn't do that great of a job when you're starting off with a very low resolution image to start with. So keep that in mind. It's not magic, but it's close. It's Adobe magic. And zoom out here. So you can see here, you have your highlights, the midtones, and then it looks like shadowing here. But in reality, if you turn off that black and white, there's really no shadow there. It's just more, I would say, to the midtones. But that black and white layer just shows it a little bit better. So we can still go in here and just start mixing these colors, because we can see where they should be blended together. This I'm just kind of rushing through this, but usually when I'm working with something like this, I would take a lot more time. But this image, we can still get a lot out of it, even if we don't do a ton of detail work. But you can still always go back in and use your dodge and burn to kind of give it back a lot of the contrast that you lose when you do this type of frequency separation, because you lose a lot of the contrast in the skin tone and things like that when you're doing this. So right now I'm just trying to blend these colors together. Here on the leg. And I alternate my brush continuously, especially when I'm using a pen or a tablet or something like that. And it's a lot easier when you're on a tablet because, using a pen or pencil. Your foot. I can go over this a couple of times. You guys get the idea. All right, so that's what our helper layer. Still seeing a few little things in here. Turn our texture layer back on. Let's look at the before. So that's the before, and that's the after. That's a good start, I think, for what it is we're working with. So still want the skin to be a little bit more consistent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and blur the color a little bit better. I'm just going to grab this lasso tool. I'm going to trace around areas like where the skin is. This doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying to blur those colors a little bit better. You're going to go over here to blur, Gaussian blur. And since our radius was set at 10, we're going to stay at 10. We're just going to blur that. You're right here on the bridge of the nose. Gaussian blur. And then cheek area under the eye. Same thing. Again under the eye. And you just do this over and over and over again, until you get the look that you're looking for. So all I'm trying to do here is just get these colors to blur a little bit more so that they just look more, have more harmony. And see, that might even be too much. Let's turn the texture back on. Yeah, I think that's too much. And every place doesn't really need this. You're just looking for areas that the blending didn't look right. And you see this close up, you see a lot of imperfections that you wouldn't normally see. Like right here, that could use a little dodging and burning right there, a little dodging right here. But let's just zoom all the way out. But at this, resolution and this size of the image, and you zoom all the way out, all those little imperfections just kind of, disappear because most people would never see these little things that, will draw our eye in when we zoom in real close on the image. So we don't need this black and white layer anymore, so we're just going to get rid of that. One less thing in the stack. And let's say we're happy. We did good with that. I'm going to create a stamp layer. So it's Shift Option Command E if you're on a Mac. So this layer here is a combination of everything that's below it. All of the frequency separation, everything that was done below, the touch-ups and everything is now on this layer. So we can just start editing from this layer and move forward. So I still want to soften the skin a little bit more, to kind of give it that magazine look. So one of the plugins I use sometimes in Photoshop is this one. It's Retouch Pro. And it has a lot of different things, like frequency separation. You can add texture, skin tone, dodge and burn. You can do the skin glow. It's a lot of different things here you can do. You can go in and adjust the eyes, the lips, the hair. But for right now, we're just gonna run this real easy skin softening action. And then once it completely runs, because it's a pretty heavy action, and then what I'll do is I'll just apply that to the skin in specific areas. Like I said, if this was a much higher resolution image, then I would be more aggressive with the skin softening. But something this low resolution, I would kind of stick to a lower percentage. I am, for those who are curious, I'm running a MacBook Air with beta software. Yeah, I'm running the Mojave 15 beta. I think it's the beta 15.5, I think it is. So I've been having some problems with my Photoshop related to that, because if you update your Photoshop past 22.0.0, you'll no longer be able to access these panels, because they have done away with this extension, this legacy extension panel. So if you go to a newer version of it, you'll no longer have access to this extension panel. So be careful if you have to update, because if you're using a lot of these panels and these plugins, and even your plugins, a lot of your plugins will be gone to your filters. You won't be able to access your filters either, because they have a different way of setting up the filters. So just, forewarned. Okay, so let's zoom in here, look at the skin, and we're just this layer mask is set to black, and we just want to make sure that our foreground color is set to white. We're going to use a regular brush, not our mixer brush, and pick a brush size, make sure it's still a soft brush. And then, I know this is set at 100, but I'm going to go ahead and start the opacity at about 50. And then kind of adjust it from there, just to see. So I'm just going in here and just softening the skin, like in the face. You want to stay away from all of the, important features like the lips, the eyes, things like that. But we can soften here, like around the armpit area, on the arm. And you can use a larger brush. You can just kind of go in and just kind of brush this in, because you can always adjust the opacity, like I said before, even afterwards. So it's not that big of a deal. I'm just trying to soften the skin up just a little bit. Wherever there may be, some signs of real life. We all have things. Scarring, if you're into sports, or you're an athletic person, or you've just lived a life, you're going to have some scarring. So that fantasy that we create as photographers and content creators of people with perfect skin is just a fantasy. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've worked with some models that just have amazing skin, but they work at it. I mean, they do everything that is humanly possible to maintain that skin tone and texture and flexibility of their skin. The way they eat, the things they eat, they don't drink. Most of them don't, consume alcohol. Anything that will hurt their skin, they're very, very aware of that. So I'll touch this up real quick. Okay, so that's a good start. So let's zoom out, and we can go all the way down here to our background layer. Click on it. That's our before, and that's our after. so far. So it's a good start, I think. So if you're just going to be creating this like for your portfolio or for a model or something like that, you really wouldn't probably even go this far, but you wouldn't have to go any further than this unless you're going to do just maybe some dodging and burning just to add a little bit more contrast in the areas. And I have a really simple action that I created that does basically that. So create a stamp layer. See if I can find my little dodge and burn action. Well, I can use any one of these dodge and burn actions because it's just basically going to do the same thing. So all you're doing with the dodge and burn is that, when you're dodging, you're emphasizing the highlights. When you're burning, you're emphasizing the shadows. So actually, you know what? We can go back to the panel and we can run that action. So they have a dodge and burn. You guys hear quacking in the background. I have 2 pet ducks and they are a little boisterous. And if I leave the door open, they will come in, which I've done. So I got to close the door because I'm working downstairs. All right, so here's your 2 layers. You have your dodge and your burn. So if you select the dodge, and then you come over and select your brush, remember your foreground color needs to be white. So what you can do is just take a large brush. This is going to be at 100, but we're just going to just paint it first just to see what it looks like. So if we paint into the high lit areas, wherever there's highlights, just so we can see it. Back. So then at that point, what you can do is just double click on it, and then you can adjust the radius and bring that down. And then you can go to your burn. You can do basically the same thing. You're just burning in certain areas. I'm overdoing this so you guys can see it. So if you're trying to contour, think about it like, ladies, like if this was makeup and you were just applying makeup to give it a little bit more contour. So if you double click on this one, then you can still go to your radius and you can start adjusting that. You get it about where you want it. And then at that point, you can bring it down. And I'll see our before and after. And then turn that on and off. You see how it adds a little bit more shape, contour to the leg. That's still a little much, but I mean, you could, adjust it a little further. You can bring it down to maybe 20%, just enough to make the body pop, the angles, the lighting and everything kind of pop. But we're going to do a little bit more. So create another stamp layer. And we're going to really bring the contrast forward. So what we're going to do is duplicate this layer again, Command J, and then we're going to go to soft light. And we're going to add soft light here. Now that's way too much, but you can then just bring the opacity down, to about 30. Zoom out. So if you turn this off, you can see it more in the background, how it's making, creating more contrast here, like in the foliage in the background and things like that, which is going to then help bring her forward. So if you're happy with that, you'll wind up with a lot of stacked layers if you're going through all the different processes of this. So you got to be careful. Depending on your computer, this could really bog your computer down because, you'll wind up with some really, really big files. So, but I'm happy with that. So let's see, the last thing we're going to probably do with this image would be the final color grade, decide on what we want this whole image to look like. So I'm going to flatten all of these layers, and we're just going to work with just this one layer. Now we could run a sharpen. Let's run a sharpen action just to see if we can bring some of this detail back in her hair and stuff like that. But a smart sharpen action, that's basically what it does. It just basically goes in through and looks for a contrast, and it kind of duplicates or multiplies the contrast areas. And then you can come here in your high pass filter and determine how sharp you want this image to be. So usually about 1.5-ish is good, just enough to give it just a little bit of sharpening, without going too far. You can turn it on and off and see what you're getting. And like I said, this is, again, we're starting off with a low resolution image. So I'm just gonna make one more layer. And then now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick a LUT to give this color. So you can just come down here and choose color lookup. So whichever LUTs you have saved on your system or you've downloaded and you save them into a directory in Photoshop, you'll be able to access those. So I can go in here now and just start looking at different colors. I have different presets for like Fujifilm, different tones that I use for, and I use a lot of these same LUTs for video as well. So I could choose a LUT. It takes a few seconds because these LUTs are heavy. And see, that gives it a more muted tone. But I'm thinking something, I mean, I like that, but let's see what else we can do. That kind of gives the skin kind of that bronzy look. Yeah, I like that. And I mean, if you turn this off, you can really see the difference. Yeah, I like that. So that would probably be it for an image like this. I mean, it's not really a lot you can do, but I mean, I think we've come quite a ways. We've cleaned up the skin, we've done some frequency separation. The other thing we could probably do is maybe adjust the body just a touch in Liquify. So let's create one more layer, one more stamp layer. Then we're going to take this into Liquify and we're going to just kind of adjust her body just a touch. Photoshop is running real slow. It is a resource hog. So under your filters, Liquify. Wait for it to load. Okay, so only thing we're gonna do in here is we're gonna just arch her back a little bit because it's so straight here in relations to the way her hip is here. We just want to put just a little small arch in her back. So we pick a brush that's almost about the size that we want to push. Then you're going to check before, look at your brush size, your pressure, the density of the brush, all that stuff. So now we can just go right here and just start lightly pushing her. And as you see, the chair is also moving, so we have to adjust that as well, so that it looks natural and doesn't look like something's been warped. And then while we're here, we could just, touch up our arms a little bit. Fix this little indentation here on the leg. That's good. So this would be our before and after. So it's not like a huge difference, but it's these little small things sometimes that make such a big difference in an image. You know, so you see how the leg is kind of indented right here. And then when you go in and just touch that up a little bit, you're just rounding off everything. And then boom, we got it. So I'm happy with that. It looks good. So my schedule hasn't been set here on Twitch yet, but I plan on going live here in the beginning, probably at least once a day, maybe sometimes even 2 or 3 times a day, depending on what I'm working on. Even the only thing that I will not be going live is when I'm working on client work, because there's a whole bunch of other stuff related to that. But if I'm just working on images or experimenting with new plugins or filters or skills that I'm working on or practicing or whatever. And I practice my skill set almost on a daily basis, regardless if I have a client or not. And I think by doing this, you really enhance your skill set, because then you become much more efficient at being able to create these images and be inspired to do more. And you'll learn, simpler ways to get the same things, whether you're using actions or panels or you're creating your own actions, things like that. If you guys want to see something like that, just let me know in the comments and I'll show you how you can create a lot of these actions yourself and, step by step. So you'll have them on your own Photoshop. But a lot of these actions, you can find them online. Either people are selling them or they're giving them away for free. So, it's just a matter of, locating them and installing them and making sure you understand what they do and how to utilize them. And you'll find even more creative ways to do the exact same thing. All right, guys, I'll probably see you guys a little bit later today. We're about 45 minutes into this stream, but that's also including the 5 minutes or so for the startup time. All right, so I'll probably be back on a little bit later this afternoon, and I'll pick another image. I edit a little bit of everything. Since my photography and videography studio, we do a little of everything from boudoir, weddings, corporate events, headshots, things like that, product photography. So, it depends on what I feel like playing with that day. So, there will be lives where I'll actually do actual photo shoots with some of my modeling friends, and you guys can watch those videos as well, and you can see what it's like, in the studio, how we're setting up the lighting, our camera choices, as well as, how we're directing the models, and what it's like to actually be at one of these shoots, live. All right, guys, it's been Rome Wilkerson. I will catch you guys a little bit later. Thanks for riding with me. Stay safe, take care of your loved ones, and create something amazing. Don't forget, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Until then, peace. I'm out.